Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Before I get into this review of the Flash Return of Barry Allen trade paperback, I wanted to let everybody know that the SJS Direct 2024 catalog is now available in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com. And on those online booksellers, you can pick up all 3 books of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog, such as Isis, Dark Incubus, John Haynes' Illuminati, and Esteem, Horror in the Hamptons. And you can also pick up my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, on Lulu.com in paperback. And now you can pick up John Haynes at Death's Door on Kindle or Comixology right now. I managed to work out the issues for the digital version of John Haynes at Death's Door on Amazon, and I'm still working on trying to get the paper version on Amazon, and I hope to have it up soon as I work out all the formatting issues. Now, for this week's comic review, I want to do something a little different, and I want to talk about one of the great eras of DC Comics. Now, in 1990s, DC was at the top of its game, and many people remember many of the stories of 90s DC, and more people usually talk about stories that featured changes with characters like Batman Nightfall, where Bruce Wayne got his back broken by Bane, or they talk about the death of Superman at the hands of Doomsday. But what I believe to be the defining story for DC Comics as related to the changes for their characters in the 90s is the story Flash Return of Barry Allen. Now, most people don't really talk too much about Flash the Return of Barry Allen, and that's a shame because I consider it to be one of the defining stories of DC Comics as related to its quality and its continuity. I mean, one of the things people always have an issue with as related to DC's is continuity, but this story basically shows us what happens when you have good editors and good writers and artists together on a story. What you get is a story that basically defines a character and basically cements them as a part of a universe and makes them a defining character for that generation. And that's basically what Flash the Return of Barry Allen does for the character of Wally West, who basically wound up becoming the Flash after Barry Allen died in the Crisis of Infinite Earths. And because Wally loved his uncle so much, Barry Allen, that what he did was take on his mantle and became the new Flash. And as he became the new Flash, he kicked off his series in 1988, I believe, when I was in high school. And as he kicked off his series, we saw Wally basically struggling with taking over the role of the Scarlet Speedster from his uncle. And as he took over the role of the Scarlet Speedster from his uncle, he was dealing with a lot of issues as related to grieving his uncle and carrying the burden of trying to maintain his legacy while still trying to be a hero himself, because Wally West just came out of the new Teen Titans as related to his struggles with being an adolescent hero, and at 20 years old, he was looking to define himself as a man, and as he looked to define himself as a man in trying to carry on the legacy of his uncle Barry Allen, an iconic hero in the DC universe, he basically had a lot of struggles on with his book. But as I read through this run of The Flash, one of the things that I loved as a teenager when I was picking up these books was the just overall story. But as I grew older, what I really began to appreciate was the craft on this series of stories, I really began to appreciate the craftsmanship on these stories because as this new Flash series started, it started out with the creative team of Bill Messner-Loebs, who was the writer, and Butch Jackson Guice on the early issues. And as the series went on, the storytelling from Bill Messner-Loebs was absolutely fantastic as related to dealing with his issues of grieving Barry Allen and the pressures of trying to maintain the legacy of Barry Allen. And the series continued to go on to the point where Wally was having some issues. And then this transition from Bill Messner-Loebs over to Mark Waid. And what I loved about this run of The Flash was the fact that we got the smoothest transition I have ever seen between two writers, with Bill Messner-Loebs passing the torch on to Mark Waid. And as Bill Messner-Loebs passed the torch on to Mark Waid, this is where we got the introduction of essential characters in Wally's story, such as Linda Park, and we got the introduction of other characters into his story. So I really love the transition on this run of Flash, and it built up to this, what I believe to be defining story for Wally West, the return of Barry Allen. Now, the return of Barry Allen I always believed to be the defining story for Wally West, who had struggled again as related to his issues of identity for the first, I believe, 50 issues. And as he dealt with these issues of identity, eventually things managed to work out, and Wally started to grow into his own character, leaving behind Barry's costume, which had the open eyes, and then putting on the costume that was designed by Greg LaRocque and really looks absolutely fantastic with the closed eyepieces and the gloss costume. And this basically defined Wally's look and showed how he was moving past the memory of Barry Allen and starting to define himself as his own hero. And this all, again, comes to a climax with the return of Barry Allen, which basically, with this cover of this old graphic novel, pays homage to the Silver Age of the Flash with the showcase cover, where Barry Allen was, again, the Silver Age Flash was shown running off this film, but they brought this cover by Brian Bolland really tells the story of how Wally thought he was running, but then Barry basically burst through, and this return of Barry Allen basically is a turning point for Wally West. And I had to get the trade paperback a couple years ago on eBay because I basically ruined my Wally West Return of Barry Allen books. I basically beat the crap out of them reading them, and I would show them to you, but they're in just really beat up condition because I read that story so much. So I got this trade paperback on eBay a couple of years ago, and I try to keep it in good condition because I want to, again, be able to continue reading these stories. But this trade paperback contains all the stories of the return of Barry Allen. So I'm going to open it up and we're going to take a look inside. Now, this is, again, what I believe to be one of the great storylines as related to things with Wally West. And it really starts out, again, with the start, again, of him seeing Barry Allen coming back. And this whole mystery builds off this story of Barry Allen mysteriously coming back after disappearing in the Crisis of Infinite Earth. And as people try to figure out if this is the real Barry Allen, we think he's the Flash, but this just one big mystery. And this mystery really, again, builds up very nicely with Wally showing Barry how much he has changed. And as Wally and Barry, again, are working on a case, things show their differences as heroes. And we start to see, again, some really great action with Wally and see how his classic wisecracking personality. I mean, this first issue of the storyline builds very nicely. And I have this issue again, but it's beat up, so I'm showing you what I saw in the trades. And everything works nicely with Mark Waid's writing and Greg LaRocque's beautiful pencils would really capture, again, how dynamic Wally is, and again shows great contrast between him and Barry as they look to protect this mobster from this threat in this first issue, which had a great cover with a bunch of mirrors, and it was just really nice. So that was the first issue, but as things go on, we get into a very nice plot twist where Wally finds out what happens with Barry, that there's something wrong with Barry. And I don't want to give away that story point because it's a major plot twist, but it's one that basically starts to show how Wally has to get over his fears of himself, has to get over his issues as related that are holding him back as related to Speed. And basically what happens in this story is, as Wally starts to learn about his issues as related to replacing Barry Allen and his fears of replacing Barry Allen, it really makes it where Wally has a major issue. And again, I don't want to give away too much of it. I want you to read it for yourself. Now, I know this story is over 30 years old, but I don't like to, again, spoil great stories. I want people to discover great stories. But with the return of Barry Allen, I would have to say this was one of the defining stories of the 1990s. Basically defined Wally West as a hero, defined Wally West as a character, and basically took him from being a sidekick into becoming his own hero. And everything that you read about Mark Waid's legendary run on The Flash basically got kickstarted into turbo with this one storyline. A storyline that basically, again, redefined Wally West as a character and cemented him as basically the Flash at this point, to the point where people don't think of Barry Allen anymore when they think of the Flash. They think of Wally West when they think of the Flash, and they think of the metallic costume with the closed eyepieces. I mean, I remember when this storyline came along, and people used to think of Barry as the Flash before this in the early 90s because of a TV show. But once this storyline came along, it basically made it where you never thought of Barry Allen anymore. You just basically said, when you thought of the Flash, you thought of Wally West. And after this, we started to see his growth to the point where he became the lead Flash character from, I believe, Generation X to the Millennials onward. And when DC tried to do the New 52 and tried to reset to Barry, a lot of people got upset because Wally was their Flash, and because he basically was a character that everybody got to know and love over the course of the Bill Messner, Loebs, and Mark Waid runs that showed us what made Wally a hero was his love for his family, his love and his care for the legacy of Barry Allen, and his direct connection to the overall continuity of DC Comics, whether it be pre-crisis or post-crisis. He was the character that basically tied us all together from generation to generation to care about the DC universe. I would say he was basically the heart of the DC universe, and this story showed how much heart he had in looking to preserve Barry's legacy. And eventually he became such a great character, he began to surpass Barry. But when he started, this is a story where he built the momentum to start surpassing Barry Allen. And it's a testament to the quality of editorial at DC Comics. I mean, this story, a lot of people will sit there and talk about Death of Superman. They'll talk about Batman Nightfall. But it's the return of Barry Allen that is a testament to the quality of the editorial of 1990s DC Comics. This story is the one that basically, I believe, is the best of DC as related to quality, as related to its editorial, from its really solid writing, its direct connection to all of DC's continuity, and really truly great compelling storytelling and great character development. I mean, everything here is absolutely rock solid. And when you think of DC in the 90s and you think of what made DC Comics great, it's definitely the return of Barry Allen in terms of storytelling. This comic right here is I believe, the pinnacle of quality, but nobody really talks about it as much. No, they'll sit there and they'll say, oh, it was the death of Superman. They'll talk about Batman Nightfall. People will talk about Kingdom Come or the Morrison JLA, or they will talk about other titles. But when I think about, again, the book that is the cornerstone of quality. It's this one right here, and it's one that I want people to really start looking for in the trades or back issues, because I don't think these books cost that much. These Return of Barry Allen comics, I think you can get the comics for fairly cheap, but the whole thing is the storytelling here and the art here is absolutely fantastic, and I want to recommend you pick up this book. Now, I'm no longer part of comic social media, but I love great comics, and I want you guys to pick this one up, because this is a story you need to experience. It's a story you need to check out, because if you want to see why people love 90s DC so much, this is one of the stories that it shows why we love 90s DC so much, and why Wally West is one of the definitive characters of 1990s DC. Now, if you want to pick up, again, my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic on Lulu.com, or you can find the digital version on Amazon.com with my other digital comic, Esteem No Good Deed. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about comics and reviewing great comics and sharing great comics with you from indies or other individuals out here, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this comic review video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.